A ridge, a breath, and 2,200 mesers of thin air if she guessed wrong. Men died. The wind came up the spine of Khoran Ridge like a blade, flicking grit against Chief Petty Officer Elena Specter Kovalska's cheek. Through the glass, Schmidt and Bender PM2, 525-56, the valley below flattened into math. Barrett optical ranging system bores pulsed a calm ribbon of numbers along the reticle. Calm did not mean safe. Beside her, PO2 Marco beacon. Torres watched the shimmer on the rocks and read his Kestrel 5700 like a medic checking a pulse. Downrange. Bravo element of task force. Nightfall threaded a pale cut between boulders. Small as beads she could have rolled in her palm. 2 clicks and change from her hide. They were close enough to count on her, far enough to die before help could climb the air. Her hide sat high, and behind Bravo's line of march, a reverse slope overwatch with no silhouette. She kept her left hand on the old brass compass her grandfather carried through another war, another continent, another lifetime. Distance is safety. Mathematics is survival. The words weren't a prayer. They were procedures for staying human when the radio went sharp. Specter swept the scope. Slow. Deliberate. Patterns are loud if you teach your eyes to hear them. A scuffed crescent where no boot should pivot. Darker dust in a shadowed crease, fresh. Not settled. A gullied drainage that looked accidental until you traced where a rifle barrel would kiss the edge. None of it was proof. All of it was pressure. Before we begin, I want to know where you're watching from. Subscribe and stay on the ridge with us. Bravo is clean, Morrison said from the command post. His voice filtered through ISR graphics and blue light. Keep overwatch. Maintain emissions discipline. Copy, Beacon murmured, never lifting his cheek. Heat shimmer is boiling. Valleys breathing. Specter let the numbers wash past density altitude. Temperature. Something in the wind that changed without changing. She didn't touch the safety. She didn't run the bolt. She simply listened to a place trying to tell the truth about itself. Elena Kovalska had spent 9 years learning that the best shot is the one you never have to take, and that sometimes the only bridge left is a trigger you don't want to cross. Bravo paused to check a map board the mountain had not provided. One of the operators, Mendoza. By the way he guarded his injured shoulder, even when it didn't hurt, glanced uphill. The way people do when they don't know why they're looking. Specter exhaled until her breath became quiet glass. Something flashed. The kind of glint that isn't sun but intent. Beacon, she said, voice steady. Do you see it? He didn't answer right away. Then softly I see 3 places pretending to be one. 3 places pretending to be one. Beacon said it soft, like he was telling a secret to the mountain. Specter slid the scope a hair left, then right, letting the reticle skim the seams where rock and shadow traded lies. Patterns didn't shout, they tapped. A crescent scuff where no boot should pivot. Powder-fine dust darker inside a windbreak. A cairn that wasn't a cairn, 3 stones shaped like a tripod's memory. Bores floated neutral numbers in her eye. The valley didn't care what she believed, only what she could prove. Detroit had taught her proof. So had the Corps. She had built herself in the Polish district's cold gyms and range basements, then polished harder at Scout Sniper School until instructors stopped saying first female and started saying first on the line. Levant, 2018 to 2019, burned the varnish off doubts. Hellman scrubbed the rest when a window at impossible distance opened and stayed open. Naval Special Warfare wrote the transfer. The community wrote the skepticism. She kept the only ledger that mattered discipline under pressure. Specter. They started calling her, because sometimes the shot you feel never needs to be heard. Bravo moved like a paragraph read twice. 2 to 200 ballers below her hide. They threaded the dry vein of a wadi, helmets nodding at nothing. Morrison's voice rode up from the command post through blue screens and ISR overlays maintain emissions discipline. Overwatch only. Copy. She pressed her thumb into the warm dent of her grandfather's brass compass and let the habit steady her breathing. Beacon's kestrel hummed against his palm. Heat shimmer is boiling. Valley crosswind wants to lie to you. He didn't have to say the rest, at this altitude. Drift turned inches into arguments and arguments into funerals. Specter catalogued, notched, waited. Prevention was the best shot. Timing was the second best. The radio did that thing it did right before someone made a mistake. A brittle scrape of static. A word trying to be born and failing. Mendoza rubbed his injured shoulder without meaning to. Rodriguez's head tilted, like he heard the same ghost Specter did. The wadi's curve funneled toward a pocket of dead ground that looked carved by water and patience, perfect if you wanted men to walk into it, believing it was a choice. "Bravo, anchor left," Morrison started, cool as a surgeon. Specter didn't blink. Light slipped along the ridge, in a shadow that was supposed to be empty. A sliver of not sun-kissed oiled steel. "Beacon," she said, her breath thin and level. The mountain just inhaled. The shadow blinked. The valley answered with fire. Muzzle flashes stitched the far ridgeline into a jagged grin left. High center. Right as if the mountain had been waiting to speak and chose bullets as its language. Specter didn't flinch. She let the first roar pass through her bones and watched for what roars always hide a darker seam where a barrel bit stone. A dust halo blooming under elbows. A heat ripple that wasn't sunlight so much as intent trying not to be seen. "Contact! Contact!" Morrison's voice cut clean through the net. Steel wrapped in ice. "Bravo? Break by twos? Smoke if you've got it?" In the wadi. The paragraph that was Bravo element shattered into short, urgent sentences. Mendoza hauled Rodriguez behind a lip of rock that believed in hope more than physics. Heavy rounds started doing long math in the air, on a saddle across the valley. A team wrestled a DSHK 1938 into place, the kind of gun that turns cover into an opinion. Beacon never left the spotter's glass. His kestrel thrummed against his palm. "Band is wide," he said. "Steady as rain. Closest hostile 2300. Furthest 2380. Heat shimmer is boiling. Valley crosswinds lying." "Too far for accurate fire," Morrison said from the blue-lit CP. "Hold overwatch. AH-64E inbound. ETA 20 mics." Specter measured those words against the bleeding she could already hear between Rodriguez's clipped breaths. Boars floated its calm ribbon at the edge of her vision density altitude. Solution hints while the mountain clawed, whined up the ridge and tried to put a hand over her eyes. Distance buys time. Math keeps it until the clock runs out. She swept once more. Slow as a page turn. The commander gave himself away the way commanders always do. He touched the fight without meaning to. A raised hand. 2 fingers. A lean from behind rock at a rhythm that wanted to be random but wasn't. 30 to 40 seconds between exposures. A shoulder and half a face. Never the same lean twice and yet exactly the same. "Commander on the boulder at 2 o'clock. Beacon murmured. "Patterns there. He's painting the field." Specter's thumb found the dent in her grandfather's compass. The old warm proof of another war. The best shot prevents the fight. Sometimes the fight has already chosen. She pictured the empty space a man would occupy in just under 3 seconds. She pictured wind shouldering a life dozens of feet off honest aim. She pictured the one bridge left. "Specter, say again status," Morrison pressed. "Overwatch holding," she said. because two truths can share the same breath. Below. The DHK crew snapped the feed tray shut. Rodriguez's groan tore across the net like a frayed note. Beacon's voice went soft, counting not seconds but inevitabilities. "He'll lean," he said. "He always does." Specter settled the world into a breath thin as glass. "On my call," Beacon whispered. 10, 9, 10, 9. The mountain held its breath, and so did she. Specter narrowed the world to glass, wind, and the quiet weight of a decision. At the edge of her eye, Boers ghosted a ribbon of numbers, steady, not soothing. The Barrett M107A1 lay settled like a promise across the bipod. She thumbed a Raufoss Imp 211 into the stack not for spectacle, but because fear breaks formations faster than noise. Beacon's voice threaded in, low and exact, crosswinds teasing, heat shimmers skittering. He'll lean. 8, 7. Below. Rodriguez's pain leaked into the net, thin and honest. 2,200 meters of thin air between Specter and men who had trusted her to see first. Her thumb found the dent in her grandfather's brass compass and stayed there. Distance buys time. Discipline is mercy. 6, 5. The commander's rhythm betrayed him 30-odd seconds between exposures. Shoulder first, then a sliver of jaw. A human metronome pretending at chaos. Specter didn't think about records or the pages strangers would try to write later. She thought about Mendoza dragging a friend behind a rock that believed in hope more than physics. She pictured the space a man would occupy in just under 3 seconds. She pictured wind shouldering a life dozens of feet off honest aim. 4, 3. The mountain inhaled again. 2, Beacon whispered. The rifle spoke like thunder that had learned patience. Time stretched thin across the valley, humming with everything that could still go wrong. Below. Mendoza hauled, another operator posted. On the saddle, the DSHK 1938 crew snapped the feed tray like a door closing on luck. Specter didn't blink. She watched the place where intent would arrive, not the place where it had been. The commander stepped precisely into the prediction shoulder, half a face, and vanished in incandescent punctuation. The fight stuttered. Beacon didn't celebrate. He trimmed the world with a breath. Heavy gun. Same saddle. Patterns sloppy now. Specter answered panic with quiet. Let the valley lie with dust and heat. Listen for the truth underneath. Boers kept time at the periphery. Beacon kept truer time beside her. She took what the geometry allowed. The DSHK team folded over their own machine, not all at once, but enough to turn certainty into noise. A runner broke for elevation and never finished the thought. Another raised a hand to direct fire and left it trembling on stone. Overwatch, Morrison cut in, tight with what he wasn't asking. Status. Effects confirmed, Beacon said, the words landing like a prayer finally finished. Silence didn't return. It rearranged itself, far off. A rotor thump began stitching into the air AH-64E, writing its approach in syllables of lift. Specter held glass on the far line, letting the new quiet settle. In that quiet, something flashed where nothing should have been, a glint not of sun, but of intent trying to hide. Beacon, she said, heart steady as a level. Tell me you see the second position. When the rotors finally reached the ridge, nobody cheered. The valley didn't go quiet. It changed shape. AH-64E. Apache Guardian stitched the air with presence and found only footprints and abandoned positions. Below, Bravo Element finished the work that mattered Casevac first. Ego never. Mendoza rose under his own power. Rodriguez's breathing steadied. The kind of fragile rhythm you guard with your body. Up on Khoran Ridge. Specter and Beacon watched the dust resettle like a verdict being written. Back at the blue-lit command post, the fight became a ledger. Bohr's telemetry matched Beacon's notebook times, exposures, the two 300-2 380M engagement band, effects confirmed under pressure. The language stayed clinical because sometimes that's how you honor chaos. You turn it into facts that can't be argued with. Morrison signed what he could sign and closed what he had to close. Weeks later, a quiet unit citation found its way into a safe. Public words were redacted. Private gratitude wasn't. The team started using a nickname that stuck. Specter and Beacon weren't just call signs that day. They were a function guardian angels. Up on the ridge after the last checklist, Specter opened the brass compass her grandfather carried across another continent. The needle twitched, found north, and settled like a heartbeat that had remembered its job. Distance is safety. Mathematics is survival. She had said those words so many times they'd become posture until today, when they sounded less like doctrine and more like a promise you keep to people you may never touch. Beacon sat beside her and let the mountain breathe. "They'll put numbers to it," he said, a half-smile in his voice. "They should," she answered. "Then they should remember the names." The wind lifted, softening the print of their elbows. Far below, Bravo moved out, small again. But now each step had the weight of a story they'd carry home. Specter closed the compass and felt the dent under her thumb, the old proof that you can inherit more than a past. You can inherit a standard. If there's a lesson to take from a ridge and a breath, and a decision measured in just under 3 seconds, it's this: discipline is a form of mercy. And sometimes the bravest thing a marksman can do isn't to take the shot, it's to spend everything she is, so that someone else gets to keep their ordinary life.